The New York Times is finally admitting what we knew all along, that the Iranian protest was a Mossad operation in order to manufacture consent for war. The article claims that Benjamin Netanyahu is frustrated that the Mossad overstated their ability to create regime change and start uprisings in Iran. Their stated plan was to cause an uprising in Iran, which would lead to the toppling of their government. Then all Israel and the United States will have to do at that point is to assassinate a few of the Iranian beloved leaders, and then boom, they can install a Zionist-friendly Iranian government. Meanwhile, anyone who stated this obvious fact that the Iranian protest was a Mossad killer revolution attempt the entire time, they would accuse you of repeating Iranian propaganda. Whenever they accuse you of repeating the propaganda of their enemy, you might as well assume that you're right on target. But can we talk about the Zionist delusion that they had if they really believed that this plan would work? So their strategy was to infiltrate Iran, murder over 100 police officers, burn down dozens of mosques, and then assassinate their religious leader, essentially their version of their pope, and then expect the Iranian people to welcome them as liberators? Let's be clear, that is not what the ruling class expected to happen. They just simply wanted this war against Iran, and shame on anyone who was caught repeating the Mossad narrative about Iran executing their own people. The war with Iran is going so horribly for the United States that Donald Trump is currently begging Iran for a ceasefire. Donald Trump keeps claiming that there's ongoing peace talks with Iran when there are none. Iran has made it 100% clear they will keep going until they receive unconditional American surrender. And who can blame them? You guys essentially murdered their version of the Pope. And the United States already attacked Iran 2 times during peace negotiations. They have no reason to trust you. Imagine how poorly a war has to be going. And the President of the United States has to consistently lie about the fact that there are peace talks in order to prevent the market from collapsing. And Iran is already mocking Donald Trump for a pathetic display, saying that the United States is essentially negotiating with themselves. Iran said, don't call your defeat an agreement. Iran has made it clear that they won't stop until the United States meet all their demands, including dropping all the sanctions, closing all United States bases in the region, and paying reparations while ending the Zionist invasion of their neighbor. So Iran is essentially calling for decolonization of the entirety of the Middle East. And this is exactly why the global majority is rooting for them against the Epstein pedophile regime.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family, we're back again. We got a special show. You guys know we had 2 hot spots in the beginning today. I'm always in the live cooking. I didn't stream the last 2 days. That don't mean I wasn't doing anything. I've been having a lot of fun with the hot spot videos. They've been doing really well on Instagram and on X. Bro, on X, they've been going crazy. So I'm glad you guys have been enjoying these. We have a lot to cover. I have my great friend Jason Smith, American reporter who reports out of China. This man is very knowledgeable about the current ambitions of China and their success in uplifting the working class out of poverty. We're going to bring him in very soon. Obviously, a lot to cover. I'm going to cover like this complete, utter tactical defeat the United States have taken by Iran to the point where they're begging for ceasefires. Also, you have the UN have one of those votes that's a referendum on the West and society in general. It was a vote about condemning slavery and supporting reparations. And you will never guess who voted against it. Actually, you probably will. the United States and Israel and the NATO alliance. We will get to that later. But first, I got to introduce our friend, amazing geopolitical reporter, analyst, the host of the Bridge to China podcast, our friend and kind of like our China correspondent on RBN. Thank you for joining us once again, Jason Smith. How you doing, man?
I'm so happy to be back on your show, Nick. It's a delight. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, every time you on, our conversations go by extremely fast. There's always so much to break down geopolitics, especially today. And I'm gonna just continue where I left off in my hotspot video regarding this entire manipulated narrative that has been repeated by corporate media on the liberal Democrat side, Fox News media, where they pretend like there are talks in the air. Will Iran negotiate? Iran has made it 100% clear, bro. Like we are destroying all United bases, and we're going to make the Zionist regime pay for their crimes. And the spokesperson for Iran been absolutely spitting. I won't play the video on the Jason. I won't get you in here because this is their response. As anyone in the West pretending that Iran is trying to negotiate with Donald Trump after they killed their Pope, after they murdered their school children, after they attacked their country multiple times during negotiations. Meanwhile, this is coming from Iran. I'll play this, and I want to get your thoughts on the current state of the war and how people in China see it as well. But here's the spokesperson, the military spokesperson.
الرحمن الرحیم. قدرت راهبردی که از آن دم میزدید تبدیل به شکست راهبردی شده. مدعی ابرقدرتی دنیا
He already started out spitting. He said the strategic power you boasted about
دم میزدید
has turned into a strategic defeat.
تبدیل به شکست راهبردی شده. مدعی ابرقدرتی دنیا اگر میتوانست از این مخمسه رها شود تا حالا شده بود. اسم شکستتان را توافق نگذارید. دوران وعده هایتان به سر رسیده. امروز در جهان دو جبهه وجود دارد. حق و باطل و هر حق طلب آزاده‌ای تحت تأثیر امواج رسانه‌ای شما اغوا نمی شود. سطح خود درگیری هایتان به مرحله مذاکره خودتان با خودتان رسیده.
He said you guys are negotiating with yourselves.
نه خبری از سرمایه گذاری هایتان در منطقه خواهد بود و نه قیمت سابق انرژی و نفت را خواهید دید تا وقتی که بفهمید ثبات در منطقه توسط دست قدرتمند نیروهای مسلح ما تضمین می شود. ثبات از طریق قدرت. صراحتاً اعلام می کنیم تا موعدی که اراده ما نباشد هیچ وضعیتی به روال سابق بر نمی گردد. رحمان
Jason, surely you've been following what's been going on. I want to get your reaction to that statement and the Trump administration, who, in my point of view, clearly wants out of this war. What is your take, Jason? Thank you for joining us once again.
I think if Trump could go back to before he started this conflict, which he initiated against Iran and Iranian people, that he would probably do so, because this has been utterly embarrassing. I mean, the Vietnam War was embarrassing for the United States. The Korean War was embarrassing for the United States. Basically, the United States has been going from loss to loss to loss. But this is, Jeffrey Sachs, Dr. Jeffrey Sachs just recently called this the graveyard of U.S. empire. Victor Gao, a Chinese commentator and lawyer in China, said this is the beginning of the end of Pax Americana. So, I mean, really, the United States went in saying, oh, this is going to be easy. This is, we won, right? Mission accomplished all over again. It's just like Bush II. And the war is still ongoing. And the United States has been utterly humiliated. I mean, Iran did things that no one expected that Iran would do. They didn't just target Israel. They didn't just target U.S. forces in the seas. They targeted all U.S. bases across the entire region, decimating them, decimating CIA sites in the region as well. And also they began targeting U.S. companies and data centers in the region, absolutely destroying U.S. infrastructure across entire of West Asia. So, I mean, Iran's tactics, asymmetric as they are, have been highly successful. Now, who controls the Strait of Hormuz? I mean, the US dollar and its entire empire is based on the petrodollar. And now we're seeing the emergence, I don't really think it's realistic, but of the petro yuan. Because if you pay for oil in Chinese RMB, Iran lets you pass through the Strait of Hormuz, unless you're flying the flag of Israel or the flag of the United States of America. So a lot of countries are either choosing one of two options to get through the Strait of Hormuz. Either they're paying $2 million or roughly 13 million RMB to the Iranian government to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, or they're paying for oil in yuan, which is undermining the US dollar because it is based on this early 1970s concept that the U.S. would provide, military and strategic support for oil passing through the region. But now the United States is the reason that oil cannot pass through the region, and the RMB is the facilitator of oil passing through the region. So the U.S. really is undermining all of its own, the pillars upon which the U.S. empire has really been built.
Yeah, very well said. And the cope from corporate media, Fox News has been hilarious. They keep bringing on General Jack Keane, who's been wrong about everything since the start of this war. He was telling them how this war will be quick and easy in the beginning. Now he was explaining, oh, well, we actually can have a ceasefire. That would be horrific. Like, they've been completely coping and in shambles. But it's not only just like far right. Well, I guess Bloomberg is far right, but I'll show you guys the coverage from like MSNBC, the quote unquote Trump resistance. They all for the Iran war. Joe Scarborough, his biggest complaint was Democrats wasn't aggressively selling the war enough. I'm probably gonna clip that segment this weekend. That was a very fun one to do. But look, this is the delusion that many boomer Americans, many establishment puppets are forced to live in. There are a lot of people who are suburbanites who have no idea what's coming, Jason. They're being fed pure goy slop. Like, for example, this is Bloomberg. In Iran, the U.S. has won tactically. What? Lost strategically and now has a choice between the embarrassing and the catastrophic. So even the most delusional neocons are arguing right now, even though they're lying through their teeth while doing it, that the United States have to get out of this war because this has been going horrible. How do you know this war has been going horribly wrong? And the reason why this headline is delusional. For one, you just mentioned it, the Straits of Hormuz. Now they said, Jason, one of the goals they have that's a key to victory for them is to reopen the Straits of Hormuz. Fam, the Straits of Hormuz was open before this war started. You want to know what the biggest difference? Iran said in their counter offer for peace, from now on, not only would the Straits of Hormuz will be Iranian territory and sovereignty, they were going to charge ships from now on to pass through the Straits of Hormuz, enriching Iran, something that Iran never did earlier. So Trump put the West in the worst position. One more thought, and I'll get you in here for your thoughts, Jason. A final thing that shows complete defeat by the United States and why Bloomberg is them are completely delusional. Donald Trump is lifting Iranian oil sanctions, fam. You know how devastating that? One of the reasons this war started in the first place is because the United States under Donald Trump and Joe Biden, this was a bipartisan effort. They refused to rejoin a nuclear deal that Iran wanted because one of Iran's demands was to lift sanctions. So what Donald Trump did, he's offering to lift the sanctions without any nuclear deal in a hot war. That is the quote-unquote art of the deal. Jason, do you have any thoughts?
I do, because I've talked to a lot of people who think that this war has been aimed at China. I'm not sure if that's true or not. It does seem like it might be, because Venezuela was a source of oil for China and Iran was a source of oil for China. But there's been really bad miscalculations in Washington, D.C. in terms of what China can take, how China is actually arranged. So Venezuela, although oil is a huge part of its exports to China, actually only accounts for about 1%, or accounted about 1% of its total imports. In Iran, about 10%. But 20% of the oil that comes into China, the most from any country, comes from Russia. So the United States has been trying to undermine Russia, as we know, for our entire lives, plus our parents' lives as well. And basically, all China needs to do to make up for the oil from Venezuela and some of that from Iran, although that oil is now flowing again, is just increase the amount of oil that comes from Russia. Also, another really interesting thing that has developed here in China that you can see on the ground is that no one notices. I've been watching the footage from the United States where you are located, and the oil prices have doubled. And in some cases, they've gone up to $9.99 on some of the, videos I see on Instagram. But in China, yes, oil did increase slightly, but barely. And the reason for that is because more than half of all vehicles sold in China are now electric vehicles. And a lot of the charging stations are solar powered. So even when you say online, oh, well, China does have the largest electric vehicle fleet of any major country in the world, people say, well, where does that energy come from? it actually does come from solar, because when you get off of the highways all across China, I've been all over China on the highways, there are actually huge solar farms right there, right at the station. So some people are, fueling up with gas, but everyone who has an EV is able to charge in 10 or 15 minutes, depending on which vehicle they have. And they're charging using the solar farms that are on location. So China's actually really insulated from this. China has the most hydropower of any country in the world. China has the most solar power of any country in the world. China has the most wind power onshore and offshore of any country in the world. So if any country actually uses less oil, it's China. China uses half as much oil as a primary source of its energy as does the United States, as does Japan, as does Canada, and about 50% less than India. So these oil shocks, which are absolutely devastating parts of the world, including developing nations, by the way, are not impacting the Chinese economy at all, really.
Yeah, it seems like China and Russia over the last few years have completely outmaneuvered the United States, because one of the reasons why the United States had their bases destroyed and radar systems disabled is because Russia weakened NATO and the United States denazifying Ukraine. And that's was what directly cited as one of the reasons why they have munition shortage. That obviously in the genocide, and they decided to slaughter so many Palestinians, the United States couldn't defend themselves anymore. So you guys see how the axis of resistance is working with Russia, and they also benefiting China, because you know what China did? Because they was saying openly, hey, Taiwan, you guys see how the United States destabilized the oil markets? One thing you don't want to do is separate and make yourself vulnerable to the crazy actions of the United States. You can have economic security and protection while you stay with China, and which is why I don't like when I look at the moves over the last few months. I want to get your thoughts on this, Jason. I know you want to chime in. Like, it seems like China is engaging in very strategic and complex strategies to win over the Taiwanese people. It seems like they don't even need to fire a shot to take over the island at this point, especially with the rising sentiment of wanting normalization. How do you see it? Do you agree with that analysis? How do you believe? What do you think about China's posture on the geopolitical stage following this conflict?
I completely agree with you about Taiwan. Absolutely. China has never wanted to invade Taiwan.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
How would they govern? I mean, that's the problem the United States has had for the entire 20th century. They invade Vietnam, they can't govern. They invade all of these countries around the world, they can't govern. They invade Iraq, they run away with their tails tucked between their legs. Afghanistan, the same thing. It's just over and over and over. Everywhere the United States attempts to govern. Why did they not want to be governed by the United States? Well, the United States just decimated their people. They just killed your cousin, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle. Of course they can't govern. And China knows this. China doesn't want to invade Taiwan. China's only going to invade Taiwan if the United States tries to cut Taiwan off from China and gets involved in China's ongoing civil war. Basically, 2/3 of exports from the island of Taiwan go to China's mainland. So it's completely economically dependent. But at the same time, you see the example of Ukraine and the example of Iran and the example of Syria. All of these examples of what happens to the pawns of the United States empire all over the world. The Taiwanese people see that. And then they look at China, a country that hasn't been engaged in a war in 46 years since 1979 for 1 month with Vietnam. And China's economy is also the largest in the world by purchasing power parity right now. Then you think, if you're a Taiwanese person, are you reevaluating your geopolitical position in the world right now?
Exactly.
Beijing's plan is to say, actually not just annex them or make them the next province of China, which is actually, maybe a long-term goal, but actually just to include them in a network of local Chinese-based economies and slowly integrate them back into the motherland. The only reason that China continues to develop its military is as a defensive force against the possibility of U.S. military intervention, which I think makes total sense. I mean, that's what Iran was doing. That's what North Korea is doing. A lot of countries around the world, the reason that they're buying weapons is because they're terrified of the United States intervening in their internal political situation. But if we're going to go to geopolitics, I just want to talk about one other thing for an example. One of the Belt and Road countries in Africa that is most tied to the hip with China is Ethiopia. And I was really astounded in the last couple of weeks. I was looking at the energy situation in Ethiopia, where China literally built the African Union headquarters as a gift in 2012, where it built the medical facilities for dealing with continental crisis there as a gift. Again, a lot of infrastructure in Addis Ababa was built by China. But if you look at the energy situation, they have 100% of their energy coming from renewables. 100%. This is a developing economy in Africa. 100%. How were they able to do that? They were able to do that by working with China and importing solar and wind and so forth. And why this is politically and geopolitically significant is not just good China, good Ethiopia, but really think about the fact that China is exporting solar to countries all over the world en masse right now. What does that do to the US petrodollar? What does that do to big oil in the United States? Which, just by the way, Trump just paid, like a Swedish company, $1 billion not to build wind power off the coast of Florida. Like, Trump literally is paying companies not to build clean energy. Why is he doing that? It's because of big oil. The amount of power big oil has over the US government is enormous, maybe on par with AIPAC. So it is also one of these frightening issues that, is affecting geopolitics. Venezuela and Iran are directly related to big oil and its power in the United States. But China's exportation of solar in countries like Ethiopia becoming 100% independent, energy independent, making their own energy, is actually changing the geopolitical situation where countries no longer need to import oil from the US and from US allies who are major oil exporters throughout the world.
Yeah, extremely well said. And these are devastating reasons why this conflict with Iran, the United States stretching itself out thin, has been a disastrous decision. And the only thing you can use to explain it is just their pursuit and desire for never-ending profits for the military-industrial complex, because, as we mentioned before, their goal is not successful war, successful conflict. Is never-ending profitable conflict. You want to know who's making bank on the back of the genocide in Gaza, the conflict in Ukraine, and now the ongoing war with Iran? Palantir. They're cleaning up right now. So that's what's really scary about capitalism. It's just how much they rely on disaster and how much they're willing to plunge humanity into darkness in order to boost their profits. Because the military-industrial complex, they love in every second of this. They're able to clean out their old inventory, renew their stockpiles. They're like, hey, yo, I know we got a munition problem, but don't worry, we got you. Like they got the money icon in their eyes, like a cartoon. We got you. Because from every metric, this has been a disaster. Now I'm gonna move on to the next point. Getting back on topic on Iran, because there's so many different ways we can analyze this. You have even the New York Times, and I'm starting to see the corporate media catch up to where we was at a week and a half ago. You guys know how mainstream media is always behind independent voices like me and Jason. So I explained to you guys very early on this conflict that this is going horrible for the United States because they had their entire bases in the Persian Gulf completely and utterly destroyed, and they will not come back. And the question I need to ask to General Jack Keane, to Lindsey Graham, to all these delusional neocons who are lying to boomers like Sean Hannity about we're winning, hey, explain to me, what did we get for having over 13 United States bases completely and utterly destroyed, and they will never come back ever again? Iran said there won't be any United States bases in the region. And now the sites are so dismantled, it would take forever to rebuild them. They are very time-consuming facilities to create. So you need to build the facilities while Iran is bombing you, as the region is turning against you. So, fam, I want Americans to understand those bases are gone forever. I explained it to you weeks ago. You want to know who's now catching up? The New York Times, explaining how Iran can completely demilitarize the region. Iran's attack force U.S. troops to work remotely. So what are they explaining here? They're essentially explaining how they destroyed all the bases in the region as their strategic goal. And this is the part I highlighted in my hotspot and what I was sharing today on Twitter. Listen to this. There was close to 40,000 United States troops in the region when the war started. And I don't know who's telling the truth here, but you have Iran and you have Russia on one end saying, hey, by the way, the Epstein regime is not being honest about how many soldiers was killed in this conflict thus far. The numbers they're claiming that they're saying it's in the hundreds. I'm not sure I believe that, but I definitely don't believe the United States numbers. But we do know that over 40,000 United States troops was displaced from the region. Look, as Central Command dispersed thousands of them, some as far away from Europe. So Iran kicked the United States soldiers out of the Middle East. And then if you continue to read, it said, as a result, according to current and former military officials, this is making the war much harder to prosecute. And so for all the people like Jon Stewart and all the idiots, like why did Iran attack all their neighbors from no region? No, they demilitarized the United States and put them in a strategically tough position. This is why they get an F-35 shot out of the air. This is why they're begging them to continue with their delusional plan to have a ground invasion. But before I continue, Jason, do you have any thoughts? What's your reaction to this? Because even the New York Times is acknowledging what I've been reporting, how Iran is decolonizing and demilitarizing the United States in the Middle East. And Jason, what did the United States get from that?
I completely agree with your analysis.
Please continue.
No, I completely agree with your analysis, but it looks like Iran is actually going after other areas. It's becoming a wider conflict. Iran is trying to choke off other areas in which oil and other goods flow through the Middle East. But, what's really concerning is the fact that there are a lot of special forces now being deployed. And it looks like, Trump might actually try to put boots on the ground, not in terms of a massive campaign of hundreds of thousands of troops or tens of thousands of troops, but actual inserting special forces into Iran, which I think is a terrible idea for a lot of reasons. Obviously, I just don't want people dying.
Yeah,
but number two, obviously, this is Afghanistan kind of territory, extremely mountainous. So these special forces are going to be completely cut off from their supply chains, moving through mountain passes that have been controlled by Iran for centuries. And so the reality is it's going to be another embarrassment for the United States. Really, Trump needs to stop having negotiations with the voice in his head and actually sit down and try to bring Iran to the table by meeting some of their demands and closing this war, which he opened. The longer it goes on, the worse the embarrassment for Trump and for the United States that this is going to be.
Yeah, very well said. And Iran, they said they were ready. They announced last night that they had around 1 million trained fighters prepared for the United States putting boots on the ground. They have traps prepared, but the Epstein regime don't care. They're telling the dumb goys to get in the box and die on behalf of the Epstein regime. That's how suicidal this will be. And I've seen neocons, like the most hardcore neocons you guys can think of on corporate media, killing my brain cells, watching my enemy. Even they're like, guys, I don't think we should invade. The most diehard neocons, hey fam, I don't think we should be doing this. That's how bad this is. Look, Iran building up defenses of Karg Island to protect against potential U.S. ground attack, sources say. And not only do you have the United States bases being demilitarized, one of the reasons why Donald Trump is begging for a ceasefire, whether they won't say it out loud because Israel is trying their best to hide their losses in this war. Tel Aviv has been hammered, fam. When I'm reading on the ground what Israel is hiding from the media, the massive societal collapse that's happening in Tel Aviv. But it's not only that, there's the effective resistance launched by Hezbollah. You have mayors in northern Israel having meltdowns, displaying how their city are disappearing because of Hezbollah and Lebanon counteroffensive. You have IDF soldiers that are returning back in body bags. And there was this headline that's spreading now about how top military officials in Israel is worrying about the complete collapse of the IDF. I covered a few months ago how the IDF, they're getting very tired fighting all these wars on multiple fronts. Their economy is in shambles. You had over 50,000 businesses closed in just the first year of the genocide in Gaza. Now there's even more. You have an entire generation who's seen their friends get smoked by resistance fires in Gaza. Once again, they hide these kind of things. Well, I've seen the video. You get arrested for posting them in the UK, for example, posting like victories of the resistance. I know a friend who was arrested for showing, I think a Hamas fighter blowing up a tank. But Jason, I want your thoughts on this. Look, Zamir warns IDF will collapse on itself amid manpower shortage. One thing I will quickly add, something to remember that I would throw as a caveat to this headline. This person has been saying this for the last few months. It also is true that the IDF been getting wiped out for the last few months, but this also a political move as well, because you guys know the Likud party and genocidal elements in Israeli society have been pushing for a draft. They've been trying to draft ultra-Orthodox Jews, and that damn near plunged the country into civil war. So you got to remember, there's also gamemanship to that as well. They're like, hey, guys, we about to collapse, and we need to institute a draft. And what he's advocating for is longer conscription times, less deference. So there's also a political angle to this headline as well. But Jason, I want to hear your thoughts about have you seen any reporting? What are your thoughts about how Israel's faring? Because I think this is another reason why Donald Trump in the West want a ceasefire, despite not achieving the military objective. What do you agree? Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, the fact that Donald Trump keeps saying that there is a ceasefire, or that he's in talks to have a ceasefire, shows how desperate he is, especially when Iranian officials repeatedly keep saying, we're not even talking to him. But I mean, if you're looking at Israel has never stopped, attempting to colonize the region. This entire time, the genocide in Gaza has continued. There's video showing tents being decimated by air fighters. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely disgusting, ludicrous what Israel is continuing to do to the Palestinian people. But at the same time, Israel has widened this conflict by not just reinvading southern Lebanon, which has done many times, but now it's saying we're staying, which means Israel is intending to actually annex, not necessarily de jure, but de facto, the south of Lebanon. And even at the same time as it's doing that, Israel is pummeling the island of Tyre, which also belongs to Lebanon, in a city off of the coast of Lebanon. So Israel is continuing to double down on its colonial project in the Middle East. So at the, you have the Epstein files that are going on, and then you have the Iran war, then you have the Palestinian genocide that Israel is conducting in Gaza, then you have the invasion of Lebanon. The U.S. and Israel are accelerating their attempt to conquer the region, and it's coming off as embarrassing. I'm not actually sure if the IDF is going to collapse. I don't really think that's necessarily true, but the United States may not be able to give the same material support to Israel that's given in the past, given the fact that things like THAAD in South Korea have been completely dismantled and taken out of the region because the U.S. has lost its ability to do counter missile strikes in the Middle East. I mean, you mentioned the munitions problem owing to the U.S. war in Europe, but there's also a major problem with missile defense in the Middle East because Iran decimated, as you also pointed out, U.S. missile defense systems across the Middle East. South Korea almost sacrificed its diplomatic engagement with China to put THAAD into South Korea. Then after the missile defense systems in the Middle East were decimated by Iran, the United States just showed up in South Korea and said, we're taking this out. They completely removed this system, which South Korea really fought to put in, and now it's gone. And so South Korea has already been, on rapprochement with China and developing better relationships with China before this happened. Now that this has happened, the South Koreans are realizing, oh, we don't actually matter. This has just always just been pointed at China for the United States. And the United States, I don't even know how they're going to set it up. How can you go back into the Middle East, as you pointed out, now that we don't even have troops there? And the article that you showed shows that U.S. troops are working remotely.
Yeah,
they're going to set up. They're going to set up THAAD in the Middle East and expect Iran not to pummel it. I don't think that's going to happen. The United States has completely run out of options. The only options they have are to basically go to Iran and to beg for peace, and basically to regret this entire incident.
And it's so annoying when people say Iran is like a state funder of terrorism. Like they're fighting against the Zionist regime who is engaging in an active invasion of Lebanon, who committed a genocide in Gaza. It's actually wild how the quote unquote radicals like myself can quote international law more than these people who claim they're institutionalists. Because according to the Geneva Conventions, if you have a country committing a genocide, it's obligation for everyone to resist and oppose that genocide by any means necessary, including taking up arms. So using the white man's law, the book that they used to mostly attack the global South in Africa. Remember when they said the international law is only for the dirty Russians and Africans? Like these are things that they actively believe as they sanction judges for holding their leader responsible for committing genocide. So as all the shit libs and all the Western neocons and Western chauvinists condemn Iran, even if you go with the narrative, and I don't like the narrative because these people have agency of their own, they have interests that align with Iran, so I don't like calling them proxies. That's what they call it. They said these Iranian proxies. But even hypothetically speaking, even if Iran was arming these proxies, they're following and doing their just obligation by international law to prevent genocide, to oppose the violation of international law, where they're slaughtering people in Lebanon. Like the footage I've seen for Lebanon, they're using white phosphorus. You have violent settlers just like the same way they do in the West Bank, assaulting civilians in Lebanon and replacing them. And then the idea of they had an announcement where they're like, the occupation that we plan for in southern Lebanon, we're actually going to make it permanent. So essentially, that's an invasion, and corporate media has been doing everything they can to hide the fact that this is an offensive, genocidal invasion that killed thousands, countless of our Lebanese brothers and sisters. So anyone who resists this state is technically doing their due diligence by international law. Any final thoughts on this topic? And I do want to get to our another segment regarding the UN vote on slavery. It also kind of exposed the barbarism of the West. So we probably do one more segment. I won't keep you too long tonight. But Jason, any other thoughts? Any follow-up? Any final thoughts?
A lot of people have used the phrase, the mask is coming off. After the fall of the Soviet Union, the world did actually look to the United States as a potential, what are you going to do? You've been saying during the entire Cold War, the United States method of undermining the USSR was to say, we're the good guys, right? That's what all the Hollywood movies were about. That's why the United States continued to deliver food aid to a lot of developing countries around the world and highlight that all the time. We're the ones who are going to bring about a peaceful world. Then, we saw the mask come off in 2003 with the invasion of Iraq. I mean, you could count it from the invasion of Afghanistan, but then invasion of Iraq, what? The Security Council did not authorize that. So you're already breaking international law right there. It's an illegal war. The U.S. invasion of Iraq was an illegal war. The U.S. attack on Iran now is an illegal war. And at the time of the invasion of Iraq, they had these embedded journalists, and a lot of them were just going along with whatever they were told the entire time. But we have entered into an age where everyone in the world has a smartphone. And so, what's happening in Gaza and what's happening in the south of Lebanon, what's actually going on in Iran, these are all real. We can actually go and look for it. Maybe people watching CNN and Fox News and MSNBC or CBS or whatever, they don't really know what's going on because they're being told the line by the billionaires who own all of these media. But if anyone has half a brain, they can just go on the internet and find out what's actually going on, because there's just millions and billions of smartphones all over the world diffused throughout all of these populations. And it's easy to see that Israel is actually conducting a genocide in Gaza. It's easy to see that the U.S. is decimated in the Middle East and it's losing the war against Iran. It's easy to see the missile barrages coming into Israel. It's easy to see that the United States bombed schools in Iran, that the U.S. bombed hospitals in Iran, that patients in Cuba right now, that babies that need incubators don't have energy because of the U.S. embargo on the people of Cuba. So when we talk about this concept of the mask coming off, the U.S. concept that it's the good guys, it's just not true anymore. And it's not believable anymore by anyone who has the ability to do any kind of independent research whatsoever.
That's why I agree with your analysis that I don't think China is going to do anything reckless against Taiwan because, like they say, why interrupt your enemy while they're making massive mistakes? While China just cooking, and China is bringing their people to the future. Like the videos I see from Chinese infrastructure, their focus. When you compare what they accomplish to what our ruling class wasted our resources on, trillions of dollars to replace the Taliban with the Taliban, for example. How does that not infuriate you as an American? It infuriates me. And it's wild because they say I'm not patriotic because I oppose the foreign policy of the Epstein class who has no vision for the future of this country. Meanwhile, China cooking, making plans, building high-speed rail, bringing their people into the goddamn future. And you have these embarrassing stats. And I want to share this first before we get to the UN because we're really going to compare the axes here. I think there's a very clear axis of evil to be corny. If I'm going to be corny with you, I say there's an axis of evil. It's obviously the United States, the UK, who's arresting doctors. My friend Rame, she was arrested again for things she posted on social media. Palestinian mourning her family, being harassed and arrested because the UK is a fascist state. Australia, arresting 86-year-old blind grandmothers, giving them years in prison at the end of their life because they said they have a T-shirt on that says "From the River to the Sea." Locking up a 18-year-old girl for having a T-shirt on that says she supports Palestine Action, gave her 2 years of prison in Australia. Meanwhile, dipshit Zoran Mamdani wants you to know that Venezuela engages in political oppression. What do you think that is? When the UK is arresting doctors, when the United States is arresting college students who has a conscience and don't want to fund genocide. So that's why that's why I say some corny shit every once in a while, and I say there's an axis of evil using their words, and to me, it's the West. They convince people that it's North Korea, China, Russia, who actually don't care about their people. Meanwhile, I want to start here, Jason. I want to get your analysis on this because I found this data point. I'm sure you see why I put up here. Like the United States is number one from death rate from malnutrition, and their numbers are worse than North Korea, China, Cuba, Vietnam, all their states that they are oppositional towards. Jason, do you have any thoughts on that? I think this is interesting, and I want you to expound more on this. Like this is the what they call it in China, the killing. I'm blanking on the term, but they like the poverty. People they talk about how in the United States people can die by poverty all the time. I'm blanking on the term they use, but Jason, I want to get your thoughts. I think this was a great graph that you shared earlier.
I think what's really important for us as Americans, as U.S. citizens, to realize, and I just went back to the United States too. I got to talk to a lot of people. I was really surprised. People legitimately are not our government. The United States government is not representative of the American people. You were talking about the word patriotism. What does that mean? I mean, no, I don't support the United States government, what it does and its policies. I think they're ridiculous, not even ridiculous, cruel, evil even. But I think the United States people, most of them, the people I met, the people that I grew up with, they're good people. They want good things to happen. They want global security through providing for our neighbors. How do you provide? Okay, let's look at CPEC. This is a strange way to come around to this, but this is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Pakistan has been an unstable country to some extent for a long time. And why is that? Because it's poor. It's a developing country. It's in the middle of a lot of areas where there is conflict. India and Pakistan have unstable relations. But one of the things that China has done there with its partner Pakistan is to develop Pakistan in ways that Pakistan would have never been able to develop without China's support. It built the port of Gwadar, one of the largest deep water ports in the world. It built an airport there for free. It built mosques for the Pakistani people. So there's a whole other thing to talk about China building mosques. China built this entire set of roads that lead up to China through Pakistan. And this is not just for energy security for China. It's not just to have another trade route that it makes it harder for the United States to blockade China. This also provides security and increased prosperity for the people of Pakistan, increased GDP growth. This actually provides security, peace, and in actual stability, not just for the Pakistani people, but for the region and the world. So this is the kind of thing that the United States should be doing. This is the kind of thing that most Americans want us to be doing. You know, when the United States sends real aid, not democracy lessons, right? Not just conferences at the Hilton to undermine a local a political authority, but actual real aid, the kind of aid that teaches a man to fish and not just provides a fish. The American people are behind that. You know, if the United States went into a country anywhere in the world and built a hospital, it would be front page news on every newspaper in the United States. That's the United States we should have. That's the United States that the people of the United States want. We want bridges. We want roads. We want them at home. We want power at home. We want better energy infrastructure. We want better bridges at home. We want high-speed rail at home. We want to provide that for the developing world. The people of the United States of America are good people. But when you look at this pedophile class of insane people who are actually running things in the Epstein, no one's been prosecuted. How is this possible? How is it possible that we have lists of people who have raped children and there's no one being prosecuted? The government of the United States is out of control and is not representative of the people. So am I patriotic? I'm patriotic to the people of the United States of America. I want a better future for the people of the United States of America, for our brothers and sisters from every ethnic background, from every religious background, from, you know, non-believers, believers, whatever, you know, whatever weird thing, someone, strange, small cult, whatever. I don't care. Americans are our brothers and sisters. We love them, but the United States government does not represent us, and the things that it is doing around the world do not represent the vast majority of people in the United States. So when we talk about I don't like the United States, we're talking about a very small amount of people who are controlled by a billionaire class who are doing obscene, immoral things, not just at home, but abroad, both domestically and, you know, geopolitically. No, these people do not represent us. It is not patriotic to put on a red hat and say, wow, these, you know, let's go invade Iran. No, that's not patriotism. Patriotism is saying, let's build a bridge instead of killing people in another country.
That was a fantastic rant, my friend. I 100% agree. I explain this all the time that we live in a capitalist dictatorship. And the illusion that people had that we live in democracy, absurd. We have kings and queens. They have just no king protest. What do you call Nancy Pelosi, who's been in office until she's like fucking 166 years old, fam? They stay in office until they die. Dianne Feinstein stayed in office until the day she died. Mitch McConnell is a brick 90% of the time. Mitch McConnell is barely there. He like this for real. He's in Mitch McConnell like this. He's dead inside, but you can't get rid of him. What do you call that? That's a capitalist dictatorship. You can predict who's going to win an election in the United States at a 98 to 99% clip based on who raises the most money, based on who preferred by the capitalist class. What do you call that? And even our Iranian brothers and sisters, to your patriot point, when they explain countless times that when they say death to America, they're not talking about death to the American people, because the American people, including Black Americans, the working class, they are captured by the Epstein class. So they say death to America because they want death to the impurity, the violence that the great Satan has spread to the world. That's something that we should impose. That's why I say death to America, because I want death to the Epstein class. And through that death, there will be a rebirth, because I'm a builder. We want to build shit. What are they building other than missiles and bombs? As they're bombing shit, China is building shit. I want to get to work. I want to put my brothers and sisters to work. I want people looking for a job they can't find. I want to put your ass to work. I used to love working my. I used to love building shit, working in factories. That shit is dead. I was laid off. I used to love my factory job back in my early 20s. Laid off. That shit is dead. I want to put the working class to work. Burn the Epstein regime down in the police state that we have in the United States, and put the working class to work. Let's get caught up to China and shit. So am I a fucking flag bumping worship? These people got flag fetish. Not even patriots. They got flag fetishes. I don't give a fuck about any of that. Your stupid ass fucking song. Your ugly damn flag. Your stupid ass bird. No one gives a shit about that. What are we building? And so many boomers, so many suburbanites, they've been brainwashed to think otherwise. who think they're the patriot because they support the foreign policy of fucking John Bolton. Supporting the foreign conquest of the ruling class doesn't make you a patriot. Crying as the Star Spangled Banner plays at a football game doesn't make you a patriot. What are you building? You understand? But that was a fantastic rant you had earlier, Jason. So it was very thought-provoking. I just shared my thoughts as well. Regarding the Epstein Club, I saw this graph earlier. I decided to share it. We get near the end of this segment with Jason. Once again, these conversations fucking fly. But you guys know they stopped prosecuting white collar crime. What is that? Like, they have all these Jewish supremacists from Israel fly to the United States, rape people, get caught in honey traps, and then they fly back to Israel. They get all the Jews who get like prosecuted. They get pardoned by presidents. Look at all the Jewish criminals who was pardoned by Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Barack Obama. So you guys understand that like white collar crime has always been legal. Like they're engaged in sex trafficking. They engage in slavery. They offend people. They're not arresting anyone within their class. This is what we mean when we talk about the Epstein class. You know who they're arresting? They're arresting a poor person who's late to pay their tax and shit. You know what I mean? They engaging in regressive. They impose regressive fines against the working class. They engage in civil asset forfeiture. They believe in a harsh interpretation of the law for the working class, while a relaxed, laissez-faire, libertarian interpretation law for the ruling class. We advocate for the exact opposite. I want to kill the billionaires. And you guys see what China does. China prosecute their billionaires, and they never forgive them for that. And one last thing I want to get your thoughts on this headline. So not only do they not prosecute white-collar criminals, you have the United States with Israel, who consistently on the world stage vote against food as a human right. And I think this is a very interesting article because they say, hey, by the way, the Gaza starvation, them using starvation as a tool of war in Gaza, that was kind of foretold because they voted in the UN multiple times. Every time this is brought up, I think it was brought up in 2017, again in 2020, and then the U.S. had to put out a press release. Well, we got to explain why we don't support food as a human right. Let me use some lawyer bullshit speak to cover for our depravity. So I'll pass it to Jason before I continue, but you guys see why I'm building the argument, and this is why I unapologetically root for the actors of resistance. This is the class of barbarism. They led the West to barbarism, and it's crazy that other people in the imperial court, like myself, is not as angry as I am at the decadence that they spread throughout our country and throughout the world. So, Jason, I want to get your thoughts before I continue. Any reactions?
Well, I just think that we need to organize. I think I really just want to say that I appreciate what you guys are doing at the Revolutionary Blackout Network, and more organizations like this needs to pop up. If for the people watching, I think, there's oftentimes confusion. When I was a young man, I was entering the anti-war movement. I was entering in all kinds of different, meeting friends. A lot of those organizations were undermined by, feds, actually. This is a reality that we have to deal with, the fact that the United States is trying to prevent us from organizing. So we need to even organize more aggressively. And I think there's also a lot of bifurcation and differences between the way that people approach being anti-war, or being pro-socialism, or being pro-progressive. So if you don't agree with a group, don't just not join any group. Create your own group. All you need is one or two friends. Create your own anti-war group. Create your own socialist group. Organize in your small town. You're in a small town in Alabama, and there's only 5 of you out of 10,000 people who seem to care about what's going on in the world. Great. The 5 of you should create your own organization. All you have to do is, get together every now and then. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that formal. Maybe participate in a national rally every now and then, or however you see fit, or feed the homeless locally. Or get involved any way that you want to, how you decide that you want to get involved. Create a website if you want or not, create an X account for your group or not, put up flyers, just do anything. Any kind of organization is better than no organization. If you want to join big groups, if you want to join Code Pink, if you want to join No Kings, if you want to join all of these organizations that exist across the United States, do so. Or if you want to join as an entity or just be related to them, what we need at the American grassroots is to start building and start organizing. And that just could be you and your friend. If you're the only one in your hick town like that wants to actually get together and do anything, great.
Right.
Now you're an organization, right? Create a name, become something, develop, build, maybe in the future, that's going to become something really powerful, and it's going to change the way that American politics work. Because if we don't start organizing, what's happening is just going to continue.
Very, very well said. I want to get your last thoughts on this before I let you go. Because this is the axis of evil continues to demonstrate their depravity. So they had a resolution. I believe it was Ghana. I need to check that again. I'm going off my memory. I believe Ghana put up this resolution to condemn a declaration of trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement. And the resolution was about condemning this as a great sin and crime against humanity. And guess who voted against it? You guys realize chattel slavery is genocide. It was genocide. It was forced. It was one of the most evil actions you can commit because it was forced breeding. Like, that's the difference between indentured servitude versus being a chattel slave. Indentured servitudes, they usually can work off their debt. You're not bred like a fucking animal. They bred our women. They raped our women like animals. So what happened in chattel slavery? Not only was it genocide, a genocide of a culture, it was mass rape. White people never addressed this. They never acknowledged that they engaged in scientific experiments on Black women's sexual reproductive parts to try to keep it as mild as I can. When you talk about one of the greatest sins of humanity of all time, you're looking at chattel slavery. Robbed generations of our people. And so the UN just did the least they can do. You gotta know, I don't really give that much stock in UN resolutions, but the least you can do after this great sin of humanity that built your economies is to acknowledge this sin and pay reparations for the crime. And guess who voted against it? Obviously, the United States and Israel and Argentina voted no, of course. But then what's also interesting is that the NATO countries, all the NATO-aligned Nazi states, they voted to abstain. You want to know who voted in support of the descendant of slaves? Russia, Iran, China. You know, the countries they tell us to hate? Now you guys see why I unapologetically root for my brothers in Russia as they fight a war against the Epstein regime. So sorry for that monologue, but we would end the segment on your thoughts on this, because I think this is a very damning omission by the Western. What's your thoughts, Jason, as we wrap up here?
As I'm looking at Israel, it's always Israel that votes against things like this, along with the United States. So I think that's really, you go back to Mao Zedong from China, the leader of the revolutionary forces in China, who brought about the People's Republic of China and the Communist Party of China, CPC. He pointed out the fact that Israel was a launch pad for the United States, that it was a base in West Asia, that Asia was capped by Israel and Taiwan as imperial outlets for the United States. I think there's a lot of confusion. Like, a lot of people think Israel runs the United States. I think that's actually not really correct. I think Israel is an extension of the American project. The entirety of North America was colonized by Europeans. I mean, that's where I come from. And then you have the enslavery of people from Africa used to build that nation, to build our nation, to build the United States. And then, we got to the West Coast. We didn't stop. Israel is another extension of what was that project. It's the extension of the United States project to continue colonizing the world. You know, I just also want to point out that not all Jews are Zionists. Not all Zionists are Jews. You know, I have a lot of Jewish friends here in China and in the United States. They don't want to go to the Middle East and take someone's home. You know, the people who are doing this are part of an American project to colonize the Middle East. Israel is an extension of the United States. It's just more of the same. What the United States did to the Native American people, did to black people, in enslaving them and killing them and raping them and taking everything from them and completely just then shuffling them off and using. I mean, if you look at the prison population now, you still have the same thing. Are there white people in prison? Yes, but there is a far higher amount of African people who are imprisoned. I mean, we still have slavery too, and it's through our prison system, not just in fields, not just like clearing roads like you see in the movies, not just doing farming, but actually at like McDonald's. And like, you know, they're actually slaves that are brought from our prison system into capitalist infrastructure to use. Is slavery is not even over. I mean, we can apologize for chattel slavery, but slavery didn't even end. Slavery is still ongoing in the United States through our massive prison system. Who has the most prisoners in the world? It's not China. It's not Russia. It's the United States. I mean, the United States has 1/4 the population of China and has twice the amount of prisoners. And then we have legal slavery in the United States if you are a prisoner. And then they round up poor people. They get them for very small crimes. They punish them for, you know, insane large sentences. Sometimes they pay them nothing. Sometimes they get like, you know, a penny an hour, 15 cents an hour or something. That is slavery. Some of these prisons, and people need to look into this, you know, they have to pay for their own soap. They have to pay for their own shampoo. They have to pay for their own clothes. And what happens is, as they can't pay for these things and they're working full time as slaves for the United States prison industrial complex, they actually go into debt and their sentences are extended because they need to pay off their debt. This is insane. And so when Israel abstains from all of these things like condemning chattel slavery, it's because Israel is the United States, because the United States and Israel are the same imperial project.
Very well said, my friend Jason. This is my hotspot brother, David Hudayan. Always have great reporting. He said, by the way, if you're African and you're new to geopolitical awareness, you can use this picture as a guide. He's talking about the UN vote. You can use this picture as a guide to know who is on your side and who is your enemy. I love David. This is our hotspot brother, David Hudayan. Notice how China and Russia voted? Then notice how your Oyibo faves voted? Like, David always go hard at these African Zionist raccoon motherfuckers. That's a whole story for another day. That's kind of who he's talking to. Notice how they voted. They said not everything is about race, but you see how white people always instinctively bunch together. From Medora to Norway, whenever it's time to do some racist shit, that's called pan-Europeanism. The antidote is pan-Africanism. So there's so many great African influencers and journalists who respond to this. I just want to share my friend David. The last thing I will share you guys to just really illustrate the point why you guys would never convince me to hate my brothers and sisters in Russia was who are fighting against the Epstein regime, who consistently vote in favor in resolutions like these to make food a human right, for example, to condemn slavery and provide reparations. So imagine the kind of raccoon you have to be one of these brothers who hate Putin. We got to stand with Ukraine. Fam, it was our Russian brothers and sisters in the Soviet Union who spread anti-racist propaganda during the height of the civil rights era. You know how the civil rights movement became a global movement? One of the reasons is because the Soviet Union was spreading civil rights propaganda left and right all throughout the world in order to, you can say it's because they wanted to grow anti-American sentiment. But I'm telling you guys right now, I don't give a damn why they did it. They spread straight up anti-racism. You guys see the black people, Chinese people, Indian people, Russian people, you see how the poster everyone united and the message like these are the values of the Soviet Union and the Russians. Compare this to Jim Crow, where you have Emmett Till being beat to death. They would bring that kind of stuff up all the time. The Russians had a field day with the story about our brother Emmett Till being violently murdered, for example, the thousands of black men who was brutally lynched in the South. They brought that up all the time. They compared that to what the vision of the world we have. But sorry, that's my last rant, I promise. Jason, I want to get your final thoughts. I appreciate you for joining. It's always great to have you on every once in a while. It's always enlightening geopolitics discussion. Any final thoughts where they can find you? I appreciate you for taking time and joining us today, Jason.
I love coming on your show. It's, these rants that we share with one another, I think are actually really good psychologically. So I love to come back on. If you guys want to find me, you can find me on X. I'm on there almost every single day. Shangguan Ziawan is my Chinese name, which is actually my legal name. When I became a permanent resident of China, I have
living the dream. Name.
Yeah, it is amazing. China's doing everything we should be doing, building bridges and schools and hospitals and affordable medical care. It is everything that people say it is. So, come to China, check it out for yourself. Great opportunity for you. If you come to Beijing, let me know. I love to meet some great comrades.
Absolutely. It's always great to have you on. I want to bring my friend Zoe on. Make sure you guys follow Jason Smith, and we definitely will have you back on. It's always great to have you on the show. Great conversation as always, my brother. So make sure you guys follow Jason. I'm gonna bring in my friend Zoya. Once again, this is the tweet I sent out. I always piss off these fucking Ukrainian banderite Nazis. Yeah, it's always a great time, bro. My ex is hilarious. Zoya be seeing it. Well, I never forget how our Russian brothers and sisters in the Soviet Union spread anti-racism propaganda throughout the world during the civil rights movement. Meanwhile, you got fucking cornball motherfuckers like Jamal Bowman who support neo-Nazis in Ukraine, he don't know what Crimea is. You have cornballs like Cori Bush. She said, I voted for the war in Ukraine because Biden told me to. Oh, great leadership. Fantastic leadership. Zoya's love. Zoya's life. How you doing, my friend? You mind taking over for a second?
Oh, yes. I'm so glad you brought me in to comment on this. The Soviet Union wasn't a utopia. It was a project. They were trying to implement Marxism for the first time in history. So obviously they're going to have mistakes and they're not perfect, but they did try to implement policies that were inclusive and, of course, anti-racist and, of course, focused on international solidarity because it was a brand new country that was uniting a lot of other countries and over 160 ethnicities. So they had to, not just for anti-American sentiment, but absolutely for anti-American sentiment. No one is hiding that they were anti-America during the Cold War. But also inside the country, kids were raised celebrating other countries and learning about them and taught to have curiosity towards people that are different than you. So we would literally have shows and like dress up with all the different people from Uzbekistan and Tajikistan and Latvia, like all over from the USSR, and learn about their traditions and cultures. So it was just a different way of living than the American lifestyle. So Americans can't perceive that because excuse me, we're so individualized here and we're taught to other each other so many different ways that we just can't understand what it's like to live in community like that. So let's move on to your guys' wonderful chats. Carson, China, the real superpower. What a time to be alive, guys. V, Olafsdottir. Hello, all. Hi. Finnish, Laika. Lazarus reported that now the fascists are dropping butterfly mines to residential areas. That's horrific, but sadly not shocking. We go to call. 40,000 military families are going to experience bad news. Don't let your children or family members join the U.S. military. They're going abroad to commit horrible crimes or being complicit here. Do not let them join the military-industrial complex. There are always alternatives. Calamity 2007, fitting that a man who bankrupted 8 businesses is going to bankrupt the US. Yeah, it's definitely irony in that. John Kemper, if they send 40 to 50K Marines to die, shaking my head, by now they should know better. They do know better. We're just all cannon fodder for them. I don't think they care other than bad publicity. Habruith the Great, the Petro Yuan. Yeah, Petro Yuan is rising. That's why they're starting all of these conflicts. Kaylee Jones, Venezuela basically fell for all of the US bluffs without a shot being fired. Also, I mean, the army wasn't activated, and that's a whole other segment, but basically people inside the government definitely were bought off. Marvin Vargas, Iran has had 40 plus years to prepare. They have the failures of US West to study, dissect, and develop strategy. Yes, and it's a very high education society, and they've definitely been studying it for years, and they were ready for this. Leroy Beresford, the Strait of Hormuz is still open. It's just open for people who they wanted to be open for. Checkmate moves. Definitely. I mean, it's really incredible to see. The strategy is incredible. Political Homemaker. Hi, everyone. How's it going today? Great. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back.
You want to see something? This is my friend. A big shout out to her. I think I met her in one of the events I did with Shama. I was in Seattle, my friend, but fantastic person here. Big shout out to Dragonfly here. Do you see this? I didn't have a segment I plan on doing for this. But Zoya, you see this? Do you see why? This is the state of the United States left, bro. They have this Choose Your Fighter rally featuring Crystal Ball, Emma Bigland, like the NATO left. They're having the NATO left pro-war rally. You guys see this?
It's all the Ukraine supporters.
Bro, they have fucking Vaush. You see this? Vaush is like a diehard anti-communist, pro-NATO, pro-war. So they have, this is the United States left, fam. I just want to give you guys a reaction to that. I saw this earlier. Barf. Like this is why I don't really associate with the US left. I don't want to be part of these. What is this? Emma Bigland is unapologetically in support of NATO. You guys know that, right? They spread the mass rape hoax. This is the Western left? Ew. What?
There's nothing left about them. Democratic socialists are like pariahs. They're more of an obstruction to any leftist movement than even Democrats, because every time the movement picks up any momentum, they show up and tell you to vote blue no matter who. But just this time, and just, to compromise, and we just have to wait, and we just have to elect more people. But the Justice Democrats project has failed. I cannot believe in the year 2026, oh my God, Ben Dixon is there. Oh my God.
Dude, this is the most cringe. They got the fucking war criminal on here.
It's the Empire fandom.
This is the We Condemn Hamas coalition.
Wow.
Oh my God, bro. I ain't seen this guy in forever. He blocked me years ago. He blocked me years ago for calling out Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush, and essentially the progressive left. You guys know my violent breakup. I mean, it wasn't Zoya seen it. My breakup with the Bernie left was not peaceful at all. All these people who used to follow me, they all blocked me. Here's Rokana. He deleted his tweet condemning Nazism in Ukraine. Remember that? And then I grilled him on that. He's like, yeah, I think the Nazis in Ukraine, they have the right to attack Russia. Hey, do you support Hamas' right to self-determination? No, I believe Hamas is a terrorist organization. So this is the We Condemn Hamas left. This is the coalition they're building for 2028. And MAGA is going to launch these motherfuckers to the stratosphere, to be honest. Because they're so incompetent. But sorry, so I just want to I wanted to do a quick segment on this because holy fuck. This is the left that condemned me and rejected me, and I'm fine with that. That's why I'm like, man, I'm a communist. If this is what it means to be the left, I'm good, bro. This is a pro-war rally.
This is the Biden voting left. Literally all of them voted for Biden and were bullying anyone that was daring to challenge voting for Biden. They all have this propensity to talk down to the working class. All of them. They call them idiots, and they just act like if you don't fall in line with the Democratic Party, that you don't have a strategy.
Remember, Crystal Ball was like, if you support Jill Stein and third parties, you need to grow up.
Exactly. I forgot the line, but these people are infuriating, really, and they're bad faith, and they silence the voices of the majority that can see that the system around them is burning, because for everyone in this photo, the system is working for them. So they have a class interest in reforming the system and keeping it going. Whereas the rest of us are feeling the squeeze, and we have these assholes talking down to us.
So you need to grow up. If you don't want to support genocide, if you actually want to form your own working class coalition outside of the duopoly, you need to grow up. That's the person they have the biggest on the poster, by the way. You see Crystal Ball there? That's what her message was last election, not 2 elections ago. That is what she was saying last election. We covered it on RBN. So Zoe, do you mind reading a few more comments? Go ahead.
She's a multimillionaire. Crystal Ball is so privileged, and so is Emma Vigilant. She grew up rich. So, this is the people that glorify academia and silence the working class voices. They literally talk down to people that say, this isn't good enough. I've done this for decades. I've done this all my life and nothing changes. We need something new. And they will talk down to these people like they don't know the kind of pain they're living through. Do not support anything these people tell you to. Save your money, literally invest in anything else except these. Literally anywhere else on earth, they would be right-wingers.
Dude, like, is there like a net worth requirement to be part of this? Look at who's on this poster. Is there a net worth minimum to be invited? They didn't even invite Sabby. You guys see how big Sabby is? You guys didn't invite her, bro. Like, what's the net worth minimum to be required to be part of this Choose Your Fighters rally? If they invited me, I actually probably would feel insulted. I'm glad they did it. I would feel like, what the fuck do you think I am? I would feel like a mark if they send me an email. Do you want part of our? Hey, we got Nina Turner speaking. We have Emma Vigilant, who's our third featured speaker. Look how big they are on the no hardcore organized. They got some bread tubers who told you guys to vote blue no matter who. So I couldn't help myself to do this story. It's a short one. Zoe, do you mind reading a few more comments as I get our next segment prepared? I have one more segment. It's a follow-up story of the obvious false flag, the obvious false flag anti-Semitism attack. You guys want to stay tuned because this shit is funny as hell. My stream I did last a few days ago on Monday while I explained the false flag attack in the UK. Bro, we were just scratching the surface of that story. I told you guys. Even the media, even the UK, they trying to quietly scrub the story. So please stay tuned. We're going to get to that. Zoya, you mind taking over just for a few more minutes? Give me time to prepare the segment.
You got it. Thank you, Thugbone AI, for the $4.99. Love your work and your passion, Nick. Blueser1, $250. Thank you so much. That's such a generous super chat. Thank you. Baziscus Quimby, Jason Smith is based. Yes, he is. Patton is God. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, it's always a good time to have Jason on. He's very well informed and just a great guy. Shin Zero Billy, thank you for the $5. If Israel was just an extension of America, then it wouldn't need the Israel lobby. John Merschmeyer. It's a good point. Batman Fan DC. The prison system is a free labor slave system. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. They make people work for free or sometimes for a couple of pennies an hour. It's so exploitative, and all of the big corporations are using prison labor. Really disgusting. Thank you for calling that out. It is modern slavery rebranded. Hexen, for a long time, Europe didn't consider Slavic people white. No, and a lot of them still don't. Ash Molotov, capitalism cannot function without slavery. No, it cannot.
Very well said. I think we're going to jump into my segment now. I'll bring you back in to close us out, Zoya, after this segment. I definitely do a follow-up on this one. Thank you once again. Zoya's love, Zoya's life, our good friend. So, for a short recap for people who didn't watch my Monday stream, you guys remember how I explained how it was false flag season, and they're working overtime to create this narrative that anti-Semitism is real when we know it's bullshit. It's a tool used by the Jewish supremacists in order to implement fascism in the West. That's why they're arresting protesters in Australia and giving them years in prison. That's why they're arresting doctors in the UK. And if it was this giant problem, why is there this pattern of fake attacks? We had Jesse Smollett, the one brain dead brother who faked a racist attack, and black people never heard the end of it. It was nonstop news coverage. Every single conservative covered it. But we get these false flags all the damn time, but we're not allowed to point out hey man, there's this pattern where you guys keep faking these attacks. I know in my heart that I don't hate people based on whether they're Jewish or not. I got a lot of anti-Zionist Jewish brothers and sisters who I have no problem with, obviously. It's insulting our intelligence. So Jesse Smollett, they would never let us forget that. They drove it to the ground, but we're not supposed to bring up this pattern of false flags. So there's another one that was obvious to me, and this is why I covered on Monday, where they claim that a terrorist organization that had contacts in Iran decided to burn up these ambulances who was already past due. And since then, this synagogue and this secret Jew ambulance organization, they got the government who promised to buy them new ambulances. They have insurance payouts that's going to be in the millions. And they was able to gain public sympathy and support and donations while at the same time promoting anti-Semitism hoax. And they did they was able to accomplish this without any Jewish person dying. How convenient is that? Isn't it always interesting how that tends to happen? How they always have these anti-Semitic attacks that always actually just insurance claims? Why there's never any blood spilled. There's no Jew. That's why I say, if there's no blood spilled, if there's no Jew blood spilled, I'm immediately believing this is a psyop. And we was proven right once again. So now that the Zionists are finished with their headline and manufacturing dissent about this anti-Semitic attack, and none of them will retract the story, they're now saying these people who are involved in this terrorist attack, who had leaks to Iran, are now released on bail. And you guys see how they degraded the crime from a terrorist attack to an arson attack. And it's hilarious because they mentioned that these are British nationals after the BBC and Western corporate media was lying for the last 48 hours, saying that this is the responsibility of a terrorist organization. Now they say, look, 2 UK nationals released on bail. So people were like, hey man, what's the name of those nationals? Is it a Rosenberg? Does it rhyme with Stein? Why you guys not why you guys not releasing the identities of these people? The people you claim are terrorists who work with Iran, who are part of this systemic attack on the Jewish people? It was simply built out. Look, and people were like, what the fuck is going on here? Because there was a lot of questions, as I explained on Monday, about this story, which is obviously bullshit. Another false flag psyop in the middle of false flag season. And they expect you to be a stupid ass goy and not be able to call this out. So let me get this right. This person is not named. They are supposed to be part of this terrorist organization with the UK is at war against, but they released on bail? Bro, they treat the hunger strikers, the Palestine action people worse than this. They no longer being treated as terrorism. They said this was a terrorist attack. So you're not charging them under the terrorism law? You charging grandmas protesting for Palestine action for terrorism laws, but not this person who engaged in the anti-Semitic terrorist attack? But no longer being treated as terrorists. They was linked to a made-up Iran-backed group, which Western Zionist media completely made up. Remember their name was like El Islamia? You guys couldn't even come up with a convincing name. Oh, there's a new terrorist group. Their name is El Islamia. And this is the kind of shit they say, and white boomers in the suburbs just be eating it up. Nom, 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 nom. They be eating it up on Fox News. Oh no, a new terrorist group named El Islamia. Bro, that was the name of the group. Look it up. They're like, dude, we got a new terrorist group named Al-Shabaab, Al-Islamia. Come on, bro. You can't even be creative with the name. And now they have motive and reason to do this too. It's not like we're accusing them of something crazy. They get new ambulances that was set to be expired and needed massive work on them. They get new ambulances that is paid for by the state. Keir Starmer said they're going to provide it for them. They also get a massive amount of people who donated to them, 1.7 million. It was an obvious insurance scheme, and they keep doing it. And what's even more shady, y'all see how CBS News and all of the Western Zionist media play their part to spread the lie of this psyop? This is Barry Weiss's CBS News. Group claiming Europe anti-Semitic attack tells CBS News it will target U.S. and Israeli interests worldwide. So you telling me that this new terrorist organization that popped up out of nowhere also just so happened to have contacts in CBS? And wasn't it just revealed by UK police and officials that these people were UK nationals? Why would they degrade the crime from terrorism to arson if they had links to an Islamic terrorist organization? So why is CBS running this story? Who's telling the lie here? Why is Barry Weiss's Zionist-controlled CBS spreading lies about this arson attack being committed by this obviously fake terrorist organization? This is obviously a fake-ass news headline. It kind of made you question all the past claims. Made you question a lot of fucking things these people told you, haven't it? So who's telling the lie here? This is how we can't even get smart psyops no more. El Islam is suddenly everywhere. Big shout out to my friend Beezus. They said this group, even in Israeli intelligence, like we didn't know who these people are. This group that popped out of nowhere just a few weeks ago, they told you that they had links to Iran. So apparently they were signed by the Iranian Revolutionary fucking Guard. Bro, so you tell me these people are the greatest rookies that ever burst on the geopolitical scene. How the fuck do you make that happen? Imagine you're in the UK. Just think about it for a second. You're in the UK and you with a bunch of buddies like, man, I'm very upset that the West is funding the genocide in Gaza. they're launching a war against Iran. So let's start a militia and declare our allegiance to the Iranian government. So then this ragtag militia that you started with your friends, you get signed and acknowledged by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Is that what they want us to believe? So they're like, yeah, don't you know they got contacts in the Iranian Revolutionary Guards? These rookies, they came out of nowhere. And they also have contacts within CBS. Because you guys know usually terrorist organizations have social media. This group didn't have no social media, but apparently they were discovered by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Explain to me how that makes sense. And usually they put out messages explaining how they was responsible by attack using their websites, using their social media. They put out videos that may be banned in the West. But you notice how they're not even doing that. They say, oh, by the way, this terrorist organization just reached out to us on CBS. How did that conversation even go? Hey, CBS? hey, CBS, I'm part of this terrorist organization. I'm part of it, Al Islamia. Yeah, don't worry, I'll hold. I'll hold. Like, did they confirm it? Like what process led to this headline being? There's so many questions I have. Yeah, they're not even good. They're not even trying no more. Who fall for this goy slob? But the real dark reason, I think this is very important to bring up, the real reason why they engage in this psyop exactly at this time. Obviously, they're the insurance money. Obviously, they're pushing the fascist scourge of anti-Semitism because these stories keep popping up with these fake anti-Semitic attacks, and they use that to implement fascism. Like for this is another example. Like once again, we're not allowed to notice this fucking crazy trend that keep happening. Look, women who perform Nazi salute at protests. Remember this woman went crazy viral. Every Zionist tweeted about her, and they use this as an example of rising anti-Semitism. Look, woman who performed Nazi salute at protests is unmasked as owner of 2 kosher cafe inside Jewish hospital. So you guys realize that they fake these anti-Semitic acts, then use that to lobby Western governments to suppress free speech. Meanwhile, the dipshit left is just going along with it. Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, we need to fight against anti-Semitism. He's like tweeting out these stories. They're obviously fake anti-Semitic attacks and just taking it at face value. Because that's the left. That's what they do. They are here to legitimize the rise of Jewish fascism. They're the moderate wing of fascism, as Marx is explained. Because there's so many examples of these stories, and that is what this has led to. But this Ambulant story is dark in particular because it's almost like they were trying to bury in the algorithms this story and also to drown Western media with this story that they will run 24/7 like they did on CBS, CNN, MSNBC to ignore the real act of terrorism. Remember when Israel murdered a group of medics in Gaza and they buried their ambulances to hide the crime? As they launched this fake anti-Semitic attack on Jewish ambulances that most people didn't even know was a thing, you had the real crime that happened literally the same time last year. Look, March 23rd. So you understand that these filthy, evil Zionists planned this psyop 1 year in advance just to drown out this story? You know how crazy it is? Look, 1 year has passed since 8 of our Palestine Red Crescent teams in Gaza were killed while saving lives. A full year without accountability. We continue to demand justice for our colleagues. This is Jewish supremacy. This is the modern form of Nazism because no one got charged for this crime. You guys know that they haven't charged any violent Israeli settler for murdering a Palestinian in the West Bank in over 8 years without no trial. So what is that? That's the values of the Talmud, a Likkudist ideology, where they are God-chosen people and they're allowed to murder the Gentiles. And they will never go after their own people. They had a right to rape rallies. And we're called anti-Semitic. We notice this. Talk about the Likudist genocidal ideology that is prevalent throughout the state of Israel. So this is not a coincidence that they did this psyop too. And I shared it before. But this is just pattern recognition. Once again, they caught one brother. You had white people waiting for this moment. They was waiting for a Jesse Smollett. We never heard the motherfucking end of it. Meanwhile, there are people that put on whole ass compilations of this shit. I was just scratching the surface, friend.
When the attack was reported last week, it seemed believable. The Jewish owner of a Winnipeg cafe physically attacked her family's business, trashed and painted in anti-Semitic graffiti. It shocked the community and led to an outpouring of support, exactly the way you'd expect. But then today, it all got turned upside down. Police say the cafe owners staged the whole thing and have charged them with a crime. As Cameron McIntosh tells us, even as the family sticks by its story, the community is in shock once again.
Did you fake the vandalism?
We
around this
didn't. We didn't. Because we don't joke about swastika on our walls.
They flatly deny it, insisting they are in fact victims of hate. Oksana Berendt and her son Maxim explaining themselves on CBC Radio.
We don't have to listen to them, but this is 35 minutes of this. Fast forward, there's some more.
In 2017, that's the latest year for which there's data. In total, there were nearly 2,100 incidents, up a staggering 47% from the year before. The two biggest motivators for that hate, race and religion. Attacks on Jewish people topped the list, accounting for 18% of all hate crimes. Attacks on Muslims, a close second.
Israeli teen convicted of, I'm glad they left these little chapters here. Israeli teen convicted of thousands of threats against Jewish centers. There was another teen who was arrested for that. Let's see if I grab another headline. This is the story of that. Oh, damn, I probably should have lost it.
Some Canadian Jewish organizations also had to evacuate after bomb threats. Today, there were mixed feelings about the arrest.
We're relieved that police have apprehended a suspect. At the same time, our community is shocked and outraged that the suspect is Jewish. The idea that someone from our own community would launch a campaign to terrorize our community institutions is appalling.
Once again, I have nothing. Here's another one. Our anti-Zionist Jewish brothers and sisters are victims of this kind of deranged ideology. So I'm not mad at them. I'm not saying that this is a behavior that all Jews engage in. But it's something that has to be noted that these Zionist Jewish motherfuckers, these I support Israel motherfuckers, they keep faking these damn attacks. And then, you guys understand how much Jesse Smollett was roasted? He was roasted for years by black comments. Nigga, we held him accountable. Why aren't these Jewish organizations holding these people accountable when they are caught? Jewish Canadian man sets fire to his own synagogue. All right, we're not going to go too long on this, but it's 35 whole minutes of these stories. We watched one.
He's been arrested after a synagogue was damaged by a fire in North York last week. It happened Thursday morning on Wilson Avenue, just south of Bathurst Street. Police say 67-year-old Avram Bobrovsky is now facing arson in connection with the incident. According to the investigation, the man gained access by using his own card and then deliberately setting a fire inside the synagogue. Police say he's a member of that synagogue. The investigation is ongoing, and police are asking for anyone with information to come forward.
A Jewish man spray paints his own home with swastikas. So this takes a lot of work to put this kind of stuff together. They come with receipts.
A man for spray painting swastikas on a Schenectady house last month, and now they say their suspect is the homeowner himself. Authorities say Andrew King spray painted his own home. He's charged with falsely reporting an incident.
I'm telling you guys right now, if you're able to put a compilation like this of brothers like me faking racist attacks, go ahead. Go ham. I will laugh at the motherfuckers too. But why are we viewed as problematic Why are we view anti-Semitic when we're like, hey man, what is going on here? Why is this a common theme? Are you guys trained to do this in like some sort of school or something? What is going on here? But yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with just simple pattern recognition. Zoya's love, Zoya's life. You want to join? You want to help close this out? I'll give you a second. But I think I can wrap the segment there. How you doing, my friend?
I'm just laughing because you said it's going to be a short show.
Of course. So I guess I'm done with segments for tonight. So I guess we just read some more comments and we can wrap up here. And it's almost impossible to keep these streams only an hour, and we still just scratching the surface of. So there's still a lot more content coming. We're gonna have some clips posted this weekend. More hotspot video. I have a hotspot video made today. I'm always in the lab cooking, man. I'm tired. I'm tired. So we got a lot of content for you guys to catch up on. We got a lot of great shows for you guys next week. I'll be announcing some new guests here soon. But Zoya, you mind taking it from here? You mind help closing this out here?
I'd love to. Mr. Blamo, the latest post by the Iranian higher official in the Russian language is actually a huge deal. You don't make statements in other languages for no reason. Definitely a good point. Elon, because the Western world are troglodytes, warmongers. But, you know, when we take polls of the population, most Americans don't want these wars. Our will, the will of the people, the will of the working class is not represented in the government. But also Westerners are very brainwashed, so I understand the sentiment. Rider in Black, China thinks long-term, we think in terms of quarterly shareholder profit reports. Well said.
Shout out to my homie. Shout out to my homie Ryder. I know him. He's a good friend.
I'm watching on 2 accounts, so 2 likes. Hey.
Let's do that, bro.
Everyone should be doing that.
I attended a few mutual aid events. We did a few events with Ryder. I like that guy. He's a friend.
Fei Lu, mess with 6,000-year-old Iran and 5,000-year-old China, laughing my ass off. But, you know, Syria was an ancient civilization. That's why those who were watching and knew our hearts were broken because we knew what's going to happen next. So you never know. Don't underestimate how suicidal and crazy the Western Empire is. Henry Gustav, American culture is shit. My friends barely know there is a war going on. We have a lot of work to do. Man, you guys need to share this stream so that more people can see at least another point of view. DCDC, I'm 65, been shoveling roofs, scraping by. Yeah, see, this is the real working class.
I don't want to like, if you're part of the global majority who's been victim of American war crimes, you have the right to be upset with the American people. So I don't want to cast responsibility away from the American people, but I think a lot of people don't have a proper analysis of our system, our government. You realize that if the American people truly oppose them, they will murder you. Like, we have resistance fire. It was murdered. Like, people need to understand the level of fascism that we're up against. So there are a lot of Americans, and once again, this is not making an excuse for them. They're living in this capitalist dictatorship, this ruthlessly individualistic society where you're only a few paychecks away, maybe a paycheck or two, from dinner being homeless, going medical bankruptcies, and you're struggling to raise your family. You got a police state on your back. You working 2 jobs, barely paying rent, and then you got the giant fucking military state that if you dare question them, they will fucking murder you. Everything that the United States told you guys about their enemy is true of America. So that's something to keep in mind. I think there are a lot of people who think that we're more democratic than we actually are. There's a reason why many Americans, they are apolitical, because they inherently know that they're against satanic war criminals who will kill them if they ever was successful. Once again, not making an excuse for them. I just think that's a damning fact about our society. And that's why I don't understand why, like, more democratic socialist types, they tend to view Western democracy as something worth preserving, protecting, as praising over what Venezuela or Iran or China has. No, this system is just pure brutality, and people just try their best to survive it. Not giving them excuses, but I just want people to have a proper analysis of what Americans are actually up against. Hopefully, you guys understand what I'm trying to say.
Mouse SF, longtime viewer of the show. Thank you. Yeah, I'm working 2 jobs and in 3 bands, probably why I'm sick today. Feel better, my friend. That's the nightmare of disaster capitalism that we're living through. Farama Kazvrali, American imperialism can't extract more from the rest of the world. The global pushback has begun from the Persian Gulf, so American imperialism is cannibalizing itself. Yes, well said. Camp Cat, grape is a tool of empire. Yes, absolutely.
The working class must reject Epsteinism in all its forms. We need a cultural revolution. No more Epsteinism. Learn to love older women, okay? Reject all Epsteinism. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, see, Nick is a real feminist. He wants to liberate women from the Epstein class. Mr. Blamo, no slaves in Russia, was always like this. God bless Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade.
Big Boss, what do you all think of Wagner Group in Africa? I think it's based.
You guys realize that these African terrorist groups like the Mujahideen, they are funded by USAID, right? They was caught with American weapons, not weapons from Wagner. When you listen to Ibrahim Traore is not talking about how the Wagner group is responsible for robbing his people of their sovereignty. It's the French. So any counterbalance to that which is by the African people choice, which is against United States presence in Africa. Anything that's a counterbalance to that is unapologetically good and based. And you gotta remember that a lot of accusations waged against them and the enemies of the empires are often projection. I'll just say that.
Africa has a good long-term relationship with Russia, so cope and seethe. And
then when Africans say they prefer to work with Russia, they say, like, this is a more example of Russian disinformation infecting the minds of the stupid Africans. Like, go fuck yourself. They know what's in their best interest, okay? And that's why they are separating from the West. And Ibrahim Traore is unapologetically having infrastructure deals with Russia, inviting Russia in, while he kicked the West the fuck out. So I trust the instincts of my Pan-African brothers and sisters because they rather work with the people fighting, even with all their imperfections. They rather work with them rather than the Epstein axis of evil that we covered earlier, right?
And if you can do a better job, go help yourself. It's really easy to criticize. The big Izai, wage slavery is slavery.
Yeah. That's show the why they would never invite me to talk about these times on corporate media. Because when you say China's authoritarian, like, what does that mean? Like, define authoritarian. Like, if you're American and you can't afford to move and live in 90% of the cities, like there's a crazy stat how like most Americans can't even afford to live in 90% of the cities. They can't afford to move. If you don't have freedom of movement, but China provides that, what would it really mean to be a victim of authoritarianism? If you're not able to provide for a family, these are the kind of like intellectual discussions that liberals are completely immune to. Like, they don't even ponder this stuff. Like, yeah, China's authoritarian, we're a democracy. Bro, the systemic class warfare that is waged on the working class by the American government, that is the textbook definition of fascism. And you can call it authoritarianism or whatever, but I think the most important distinction is whether you're fascist or whether you have policies for the working class. Fascism is systemic class warfare waged by the ruling class. That's why they need a merging between corporation and state, because the merger between corporation and state is vital in imposing the class warfare and order on the working class. So do we descend to barbarism? Do we descend and allow the ruling class who want to implement fascism, and they will in a heartbeat, the working class will? Or do we see the mean of production? Or do we model our economy close to what we've seen work in China? Well, we've seen communism every time it's tried, it's worked. That's why they need sanctions to topple it. All right, I'll shut up. So, my friend Ryder, what's poppin', Ryder?
Yeah, thanks for the $10. Call me after the show, Nick. I need to drop by and talk offline. I think I have a big scoop for the show. Thank you, Ryder. Cowboy kitties, because the 13th Amendment legalizes slavery. Yes, it does. And a lot of people don't know that. Violin, slavery is the ideal condition for labor under capitalism. Yeah, I mean, if you can get away with paying $0, you're maximizing profits, and that's all capitalism cares about. James Starks, the Zionist Epstein NATO left is at it again. A rally? Really? Yeah, it's a great grift, and they're gonna register you for Act Blue, and then you're gonna get text messages to vote for Gavin Newsom.
Dude, can you imagine how much money they about to fucking hustle from the working class? Makes me sick. Dude, and you know they about to raise a fucking shit ton of money, bro.
It's horrifying.
Oh my god, we're so cooked. For people who don't know what we're talking about, look at this. I'm shook. Like, this is like their big announcement. They was teasing this. Like, we got a big announcement, guys. We let you, like, there's their big tweet. Everyone losing their mind. This is the established U.S. left. Ugh.
Horrible.
Gross.
These people throw every country fighting for survival against the evil U.S. empire under the bus. These are the same people that criticize Maduro. These are the kind of people that'll tell you that Gaddafi was bad. They just
remember how Voss said NATO is a revolutionary movement?
Oh my god.
To be fair, he trolls a lot, but he presents opinions he wants to put out there as trolling. So he would say that shit, but he would never take it back. He was like, NATO is a true socialist revolutionary movement, and that's why he get invited to events like these. Like that's an immediate disqualifier. Like, if you think I'm being too mean to the other people, come on, bro. Like, come on. Like, this is the one I won't have any wiggle room on. This alone disqualifies your entire movement. You understand that? If you think I'm too hard on Nina Turner or whatever, you think I'm too hard on the NATO leftists, I'm too hard. Bro, there's no defense of this motherfucker, bro. I'm telling you that this is disgusting, and they about to raise a ton of money on this shit.
Nick, I remembered that you debated Vaush once. Like, years ago.
I was proven 100% right because he was advocating for Biden leftism, and Biden ended up supporting a genocide, and all these people pretend they never supported that in the first place. But anyway, this is the U.S. left. You guys wonder why I don't want to be part of it? Like, I don't want to be part of it. This club is disgusting to me. Like, I'd rather just do my own thing with Zoya and my RB crew. You know what I mean? Ew.
And/or dude, boomers will believe anything that stupid box tells them to. A lot more than boomers, other people too. I mean, a lot of people I encounter, they are clueless on everything we discuss on this show.
Yeah.
President Jafar, every black man lynched is miraculously labeled a suicide in USA. Yeah, this is just one of those things where I feel like they're gaslighting us and they want us to go along with them, because all of these mysterious deaths, black men are not lynching themselves. It's preposterous. It's preposterous. And it's all happening in places like Mississippi that have a very fucked up history. So,
bro, they don't even talk about this shit. They brutally tortured, like, they did stuff like lit men's genitals on fire, saw limbs off. Like, this is the history that white people refuse to acknowledge. And fam, that wasn't that long ago. Nigga, your grandma was alive for this. If you're listening to me right now, if you're anywhere near my age, they talk about like this shit like it's ancient history. Bro, there are photos of motherfuckers who are still alive, who was part of these like Emmett Till lynchings, all the violent attacks. These motherfuckers are still alive. And white people pretend it's ancient history. They got old grandmas who lynched a few Negroes, and the police agencies. Like, people don't understand how systemic it was. Because police officers, we discussed this on our 10 Demands segment years ago, Zoya, how they worked with lynch mobs, and that's how they got the addresses. Like, whenever they wanted to hunt a Negro down to lynch them, they'll work with the police department. They'll give them the address, and they'll work in coordination, and the police officers will often be involved with it. And it's not a small number. You're talking about thousands of black men was lynched like this. Thousands and thousands. Think about that. Think about the impact of that. That's thousands of families that lost their breadwinner. Think about it like that. Thousands of single mothers now. This is real economic impact that lasted generations. And then white people are like, don't you know, get over it. Get over it. Don't you know, you don't need any reparations. You guys don't know the half of it. You guys wasn't taught shit. You guys don't know any history. The entire history that white people know of was completely manufactured by the Epstein regime. It's embarrassing they don't understand that. But Zoya, sorry, please continue.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I've seen pictures of these lynchings, and they had children there, and they would pass out body parts with like little girls and boys smiling and celebrating. It's really disturbing, the history of America and the history of American policing that is absolutely rooted in slave catching. And we're, of course, a country cannot move past that until the debt is paid, and a debt is owed, even economically speaking, because labor was stolen from these people, not to mention the brutality. And this is a stain on American history that they cannot erase, and this is what USSR was highlighting in those Soviet propaganda posters. Soviet propaganda was made possible by American atrocities, and Hitler was inspired by what Americans were doing. He wrote about it himself.
And if you teach little Timmy that, Ron DeSantis and a bunch of white boys will get mad at you for talking about critical race theory and teaching American history that teaches our young boys to hate our country. What do you guys think they're talking about? And they wage this war, and there's an entire generation of young, dumb Gen Z white boys who have no idea about any of this stuff, Zoya, because they wasn't taught it. They have the post-critical race theory education, and my education was already shit. They don't know anything that we're talking about. That's why we had the show.
Another thing that pisses me off is that Black people also went and built their own communities that were very successful and actually inclusive. They would welcome Indigenous people and other people that were discriminated against, but they built their own Black banks, Black economies, like Seneca Village, and it was all taken from them. Violent mobs showed up every single time that Black people were being successful, and they murdered women and children, unarmed civilians. And then like Seneca Village is now Central Park. So they don't, that's why they want to cover up all of this history. They literally build landmarks on top of it that people go to as tourists and have a good time, completely ignorant to the history of that they're standing on dead bodies.
Zoya's love, Zoya's life. Also a mini historian, by the way. On top of the many talents of hers. But please continue.
Chief Madhu, thank you for the $5. Iran's version of woman empowerment is women having doctorates. The US's version of woman empowerment is women being able to expose themselves online. That's a point that Nick just keeps making because he's always correct.
I think is that the last one, Zoya?
Yeah, that's the last one. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know it was a Thursday. We usually do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we'll be back on schedule next week. Please make sure you're following us on all platforms: Twitch, Kick, Rumble, X, and Telegram. And make sure to subscribe to the Patreon. Even if it's free, at least you'll always know when the show goes live. The link is in the description. And Nick, any last words?
I appreciate you guys for watching. I mean, we got two 2-hour streams back to back this week, so there's plenty of content for you guys to watch. There'll be clips up this week, and a lot more content moving forward. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. I appreciate you guys. Have a good night. Take care.